Oh, Captain, my Captain, welcome to Week 4's DFS Showdown slate video preview with myself, Joshua Hudson, and of course, Austin Amandolia, our DFS expert here at Club Fantasy FFL. And today we're going to be previewing Week 4's Thursday night game, the Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Football Giants. We're going to give you our favorite captain picks and the rest of the flex picks to build out your most optimal lineup and tell you how you guys can play against us. Stay tuned. Welcome into Oh Captain, My Captain, Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown slate video for all of, well, not all of your primetime games, but at least your Thursday night primetime games. And let me tell you, we got a freaking doozy of a primetime game this week. I'm Joshua Hudson. You can find me at the One Hudsonian on all the socials. And of course, the captain himself, Mr. Austin Amandolia at Austin_FFL. Austin, how are you doing on this Thursday night, buddy?
I'm good. I'm not certain I'm looking forward to this game, but there's always something to be invested with the Thursday night games, thanks to this show.
And of course, I said it was Thursday night. The game is Thursday night. Tonight is actually Wednesday night when we're recording this. This is how off kilter I am with a hurricane bearing down on where I live right now. So this is going to be fun. So let's get this in before I lose power, right?
Yes.
All right. As previously mentioned in the intro, this is previewing the Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Football Giants. There's some good options on both sides, not so great options on each side. So we want to show you how to build out the most optimal lineup and help you choose the right captain to salute when all is said and done and you're taking down those tournaments. So first and foremost, Austin, tell everybody how they can play these showdown slates against us and the rest of our Club Fantasy family.
Yeah, so we have a league on DraftKings. The link to join the league is in the show description. We run a contest every Thursday night. It is the Thursday Night Mutiny, where you get to take down the captain, to overthrow the captain, if you will. Starting this week, I'm also going to create a Sunday night showdown and a Monday night mutiny. That we got the alliteration going with us last week. Kind of dropped the ball on the alliteration for the Thursday night ones, so we'll get there with that eventually. You can also join us for the main slate on DraftKings and also on FanDuel, but make sure you get that link in the show description to join those leagues.
Awesome. Love it. All right. And of course, we want to give a great shout out to our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football, and their partnership with Trophy Smack. So use the unique link, trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Get yourself some cool swag, commissioner of your league. Get them a nice little thank you. They've got rings, trophies, championship belts, wall art to decorate your offices, your living rooms, whatever it may be. All of it is perfectly customizable. A lot of great stuff over at Trophy Smack. We love Matt and the team, and of course Kelly, their VP of marketing, who is a big friend of ours here at Club Fantasy and Women of Fantasy Football. So do anything and everything you can to support what we're trying to accomplish with Women of Fantasy Football by using this unique link to do all of your achievement-based shopping. That's trophysmack.com/WOFF. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see the ticker across the bottom the entire time. But if you're catching this on any of the podcast feeds, guess what? We got a direct link right in the description. So hit that and show us some love. trophysmack.com/WOFF. WOFF. All right, let's get into the first segment. Captain Chalk. Because let's face it, everybody has the chalky picks. This is the clear and obvious choice that everybody is likely going to be taking in these showdown slates because, yes, they're just that damn good. And Austin, while both of these teams have very much disappointed this season on multiple levels, there are still some good players. Let's start with the guy that's catching passes from Dak Prescott.
Yeah, so CeeDee Lamb is going to be the most chalky captain. I am certain of it. I would be surprised to see anybody else rostered more than him in that captain slot. He has gotten 23 of the Dallas targets this year. That leads the team at 7 more than tight end Jake Ferguson, who comes in second on that category. He has the most catches with 13. Not a great catch rate so far, but he's clearly the number one target in this offense. He's got the most receiving yards. He just also has the highest upside for, a 10 catch, 100-yard, 2-touchdown game. Like, that wouldn't shock anybody for CeeDee Lamb, particularly against this opponent. This is the rare case where I might actually play the chalky captain in a couple of lineups. I don't like to do that. I named the chalk captain for those cash players out there and for people to be aware of the overall game environment. But this week I might go with it because CeeDee Lamb, it's just, I could see this game being very top heavy because of the nature of the other players in this game, which we will get to. I feel like it might be worth having CD as the captain, but I have some other options that we'll get to.
This is what I love about the prospect of putting CeeDee Lamb as your captain. So he held out most of the offseason, waited on that big contract, finally got it the week leading up to the season. So not really a ton of practice time. So these first 3 weeks have really been his preseason, right? This is week 4, which really is week 1. We have not seen the CeeDee Lamb breakout yet. New York Giants, I believe, are down there, not just their top corner, which really isn't a top corner, but also their top 2 corners. If CeeDee Lamb is going to be feasting on backups, that's worth the price tag of, what is it, 17.7 to be the captain? Just saying, people. Just saying. All right, let's move into the next segment here, which is the Mutineer. These are the contrarian captain choices that offer a little bit of variety and some upside in some of these larger tournaments. So if you don't want to pay up for CeeDee Lamb, maybe you take a small step back in some of these instances. So let's start with the star wide receiver over on the other side, Austin, who over the last 2 weeks has caught 3 touchdown passes. Talk to us about Malik Nabers.
Yeah, so as many targets as CeeDee Lamb is bringing in, Malik Nabers is ahead of CeeDee Lamb in terms of pure targets and in terms of target share. So I mentioned CeeDee Lamb has 23 targets through 3 games. Malik Nabers has 36 through 3 games. CeeDee Lamb's target share is actually a little bit under 20%. Malik Nabers is a whopping 38%. So he's going to get targets in this game. It's not as high volume of an offense as Dallas is in terms of passing. So to give the numbers comparison, and this is all coming from PFF, Dallas is 116 total team targets so far. New York only has 94, so it is a little bit less overall volume, but doesn't matter. Nabers is still getting a ridiculous amount of volume. I think he's still going to be pretty highly rostered in the captain spot. I would guess that CeeDee Lamb is going to be about 20% rostered in the captain spot. Malik Nabers probably in the 15 to 18 range. So it's not getting super contrarian, but it is at least getting off the player that's going to be most likely the number 1, which I think is helpful to do in this game environment where I don't think people are going to want to play Giants players. I think they still are going to think that the Giants are phony, and they're going to want to play Dallas because we have lots of narratives that Dallas has a good offense. But I think playing Giants in your captain spot is actually a good way to get different in this one.
So I think the narrative with Dallas is that their defense is good when they play shitty teams, a la Cleveland. Saints go through and they put up a 40 burger on them. And then last week was last week, right? Yeah, a little disappointing, but how you attack them is on the ground, right? So Malik Nabers, I think, maybe not necessarily get faded because I still think there's a little bit of aura, so to speak, around Trayvon Diggs. But, how we talked about this pre-show, how Diggs feasts on bad quarterbacks like Daniel Jones. He struggles against wide receivers like Malik Nabers who can, fake him into those bites on the sluggos and, outrun him basically. So, but Baltimore gave you the recipe on how to beat Dallas's defense. Run the football down their throat, right? So let's talk about the Giants running back on the other side, Motor, as the nickname is, Mr. Devin Singletary.
Yeah, this is my favorite captain of the week. If I were to tell you to play a captain and you only have one lineup, it's going to be Devin Singletary. He is 12.3K on DraftKings, which I believe was the 5th highest rostered captain player. Here's the reason I'm intrigued by this. Dallas, per Next Gen Stats, currently leads the league in yards allowed after contact per attempt on defense. They are allowing 4 yards per attempt after contact. 4 freaking yards. They're also not doing great before contact either, right? Like, it'd be great if they were like, oh, well, it's -2 yards before contact and it's 4 after. No, they're giving up about 1.5 yards before contact and then 4 yards after contact. They're giving up over 5 yards per rushing play allowed. That is tied for the worst in the league with the Las Vegas Raiders. We're betting on Devin Singletary running the ball. He is getting the vast majority of running back touches in New York. So I'm going to bet on the running backs in this game on both sides. We're going to get to the Dallas ones as well because New York also not great at stopping the run.
It's going to be a really interesting game. And I got to tell you, as an Eagles fan, I love picking on these bad teams. So much fun. All right. Our next topic, or our next segment here, rather, first mate. So every captain needs a reliable crew. So these are going to be the standouts that help you maximize those lineups to help you take down these tournaments. So let's pivot back over to the Dallas side of things. We have a couple of low price options here. Who I want to start with, Austin, since you were leaning into the running backs. Let's talk about Rico Dowdle because it seems like he's starting to kind of take over a little bit from Zeke Elliott, who really hasn't been very impressive through 3 weeks.
Yes. And I think first off, if you look at the snap counts, again, per PFF, Rico Dowdle is out snapping Ezekiel Elliott 30-23 through 3 games. It's not a huge difference, but that's notable. He's has more rushing attempts at 23-19. He also has more receiving, more pass volume. So he's beating Ezekiel Elliott on all fronts. And I mentioned that both of these defenses were bad. Dallas is first in yards per contact or yards allowed after contact per attempt. New York is second. They both have 4.02 yards allowed after contact. I guess once you get to the 1,000th place, Dallas just barely beats them out. Also notably, these two teams are tied for the most rushes allowed of 10 or more yards at 17 apiece. There are so many stats that say you should lean into the run game on this one. Another one, just back to the Dallas side, just for shits and giggles. The Dallas is allowing 0.27 EPA per rush, which is MVP level quarterback play. Like, let's be clear about how good that is. So I'm leaning into both running backs, and I think it will be a way to get different because I don't think people are going to want to do that. I think people are still going to bet in. They're going to say, oh, well, these are shitty defenses. So pass volume, right? Shootout. I don't think so. I wonder if this just ends up being the running back show. And I'm going to bet on Rico Dowdle because he's got the hot hand in Dallas right now.
Man, I can't wait till Saquon Barkley faces these teams.
Things you would not have said before.
So much fun. All right, let's pivot back because you talked about the wide receivers here. I mentioned when we discussed CeeDee Lamb, the Giants are down, I believe, their top 2 corners. Jalen Tolbert has started to kind of get a lot more involved and has actually been looking a lot better than the nominal number 2 in Dallas, Brandon Cooks.
Yes, and he is just barely has just barely run more routes than Brandon Cooks has so far this year. So Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks have had the same number of passing snaps, but Tolbert has run just 2 more routes than him. So not a huge difference, but we're seeing that at least he's getting the same amount of usage as Brandon Cooks, which is, I don't think what we would have expected coming into the year. We would have said that Brandon Cooks was the clear number 2 and Jalen Tolbert was the clear number 3. It's now like they're both kind of interchangeable at that number 2 spot. So I think the volume is there, and similar things like their targets are really close. Brandon Cooks has 15, Jalen Tolbert has 14 on the year. The thing I like about Jalen Tolbert is his efficiency is actually better than Brandon Cooks. So he has 13.6 yards per reception compared to Brandon Cooks, who's at 9.4. So you get a similar amount of volume, but higher efficiency. And I believe he is cheaper on the slate. So I'm buying into the running backs, but I'm not necessarily fading all of the receivers. I still think that the receivers are going to be an important, like picking the right receivers is going to be an important aspect of getting this game right and hitting an optimal lineup. So I will have Jalen Tolbert also because he's 5,800. And one thing we'll talk about a little bit later on, but this slate is really hard to fit a full lineup in because you're going to be tempted to spam the high end guys, and they're all too expensive to really lean into that strategy.
Yeah, wait for that last segment. It's one of my favorites every single week. All right, our next topic here. Deck scrubbers. Cheap punt plays that can make a lineup based on one play, limited opportunity. I want to start with Brandon Aubrey here because truthfully, he's like a top 2 tight end, honestly, when it comes to overall scoring in fantasy this year. And by far and away, the number 1 kicker. Dallas's scoring offense really hasn't been great, and Brandon Aubrey's carrying it for $5,000. It might make sense to put him as your captain, in all honesty.
I would never do that, but there will be somebody. There will be like 2% of lineups. I will see it, I'm sure, because every week there's always people put defenses in their captain. They put kickers in their captain. It's going to pay off once in a blue moon, but it most of the time doesn't. But Brandon Aubrey,
way to get different. That's all I'm saying.
Brandon Aubrey, I think I could see him being more highly rostered than kickers typically are. Kickers typically float in that 20 to 30% range overall. I could see him pushing 50%. It's a little bit chalky, but he's probably going to get you 10 to 15, 16 points. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, I don't feel certain about most other players outside of the elite players accomplishing that in this game. So I feel like it's an easy slot to fill into our lineups, and we'll get the difference elsewhere in our lineup.
So let's pivot back to the Giants here with Wan'Dale Robinson. He's seen a lot of targets, at least in week 1 he did. Shifted back more towards Malik Nabers these last few weeks. Why do you like him in this matchup?
Yeah, it's just because he's the clear number 2 in my mind. Like, yeah, most of his targets came in week 1, but he still is ranked 2nd on the team in total yards and targets and receptions and receiving touchdowns. Like, he's going to be the number 2. He lines up in the slot. So it'll also be nice for him. Like, Neighbors will be getting attention outside. And so Wan'Dale can take advantage of that by getting people drawn off of him while he's lining up in the slot. It's also just, again, he's 4,800. It's a cheap play. I need to find ways to get different. And I think by playing him in this matchup, I'm probably going to do like a Devin Singletary captain and then have Wan'Dale Robinson as my other New York Giant. Because like I said, it's hard to put in guys like Nabers and CeeDee Lamb all in your lineup. And I think that's going to be something that folks don't really do because they're going to want CeeDee Lamb or Malik Nabers in their captain spot or the quarterbacks. And then B, if they do put Devin Singletary in at their captain spot, I think they're going to want to try and squeeze in one of the wide receiver 1s. And so getting a little different with a wide receiver 2, it's really more so a game theory move and betting that people aren't going to want to pair Devin Singletary and Wan'Dale Robinson that much.
You know how you can get CeeDee Lamb and Malik Nabers in your lineup at the same time? You put Brandon Aubrey as your kicker. I'm just saying. That's your captain right there. All right.
I will say that is an important point. If you were doing that move, if you're putting Brandon Aubrey in your captain spot, it's a salary move. It's not a game script move. I don't believe that putting like your kicker in a captain spot and then having both defenses and a kicker and your flex spot is a good strategy for showdown slates. But I have seen it mostly in Formula One DFS, side tangent, but I have seen where people put a low salaried player in the captain spot so that they can fit in all of the expensive people. That I feel more comfortable with. I probably still won't do it, but I think if you're going to go that route and you're doing multi-entry, large field, that's the way to go about that.
Makes sense. All right, friendly reminder, you can play these DFS Showdown slates against us. Hit the link in the description of either the video or the podcast feed that you're checking us out on. Head over to DraftKings or FanDuel or wherever you're playing on. You can play against us on these feeds. Wait, hang on. The showdowns are just on DraftKings, correct?
Correct.
I want to correct. Okay, I want to make sure that because the Sunday slate, I know you can play with us on FanDuel. All right, scratch that. Just on DraftKings. The link is in the description. So hit that, come play against us and, take our money or something because, we're so rich apparently. That said, final segment, my favorite one, the Kraken. These are the lineup traps that sink the ship. And usually you have like one or two options here, Austin. And you basically just said, fuck it. I don't want anybody under $3,000.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. So I'm going to read out some of these people. The first person at 3K, Dalvin cooked. Tyrone Tracy, nah. Theo Johnson, he'll get a target. Jalen Brooks, he'll get a target. Daniel Bellinger, is he even like he's the tight end 2 now somehow, even though we were all excited
he's
about
running
him.
routes that much anyway.
Deuce Vaughn, okay, maybe he'll overtake Ezekiel Elliott at some point, but come on, he's getting like 3 touches a game. Luke Schoonmaker, as long as Ferguson's in the lineup, it's fine. And then you start getting into some weirdies like Loop Key, Jalen Hyatt's down there. He still hasn't popped. Evan Gray, nope. I don't even know who D. Miller is. Mike Davis was the Christian McCaffrey replacement in 2019. Like, there's no one in here. Like, it's just don't even look at it. You're gonna have to figure out how to get different by being creative with who's in your captain spot and the combination of flex spots. What I will say about this is a week where I am not going to be putting a lot of cash into the Thursday night showdown slate. Sometimes I feel really good and I feel like I can get different lineups multiple ways. And so I will play multiple lineups and I'll put like more money in it than typically. I will probably make one lineup. I will put probably $5 in it and walk away, and it will be a small contest. That is me for this week because I think it is. I don't like this matchup. I think there's so much variance. I can't tell which way it's going to go, which is why if you have the bankroll, you should max enter a contest and play into that. But for me, I'm going to be underweight this week just because this matchup can go so many different ways. The other thing I wanted to say about the 3K guys, the reason I wanted to say don't do it is because that's your only way that you're going to get all of CeeDee Lamb, Malik Nabers, Dak Prescott, and Daniel Jones in your lineup. I looked at it. There's nobody. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to me. I don't care how good those 4 guys are. It's not worth it.
See, this is what I'm saying. This is how you get different. You put Brandon Aubrey in that captain spot and you load up on those high-end guys, right? That's the only, because those are the guys that are going to pay off at the end of the day. And Brandon Aubrey can still contribute a decent amount for a captain when it comes to points. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying, because otherwise you're going to end up with a bunch of duds spending $1,200, $2,000, $2,400, whatever it is. You're going to get a bunch of zeros, and those guys have to carry you, right? Now they can almost fill your lineup. So,
okay, you can almost do it. I thought, let's experiment right now. Brandon Aubrey in the captain spot. You can get CeeDee Lamb, Malik Nabers, Dak Prescott. You cannot get Daniel Jones. It's literally impossible because then you only have $100.
So if instead of Dak, can you get Devin Singletary and Daniel Jones?
You could. I think you could.
Okay.
So
at least Daniel Jones is running the football. So
let's see. Can you do that? Yes. In order to do that,
there's your lineup. Perfect.
That's gross. That's so gross. I don't want to start Jalen Brooks or Daniel Bellinger. I would rather, if I do that, I would rather start Dak because I think the pass volume will be there. Drop down, get Jalen Tolbert.
For those listening and want to play against us, this will be my lineup in the showdown slate. So come and take my money, all right? If you do not believe this strategy can work, come and take my money.
It's nasty, but hey, if you win, We'll talk about it next week.
Oh, I will be gloating like a bitch on next week's show. Let me tell you. All right. Once again, help us out over at Trophy Smack. You can use our unique link with our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football. It's trophysmack.com/WOF. That's WOFF. Get all of your achievement-based needs. Championship rings and belts, trophies, wall art to decorate your office, your kids' rooms, whatever it may be. All of that is available over at trophysmack.com/WOF, WOFF. Show some love to our sisters over at Women of Fantasy Football. This has been Captain, my captain here on Club Fantasy. It's our weekly DFS Showdown slate video preview. You can follow Austin at Austin_FFL, myself at the One Hudsonian, and of course, Club Fantasy FFL at Club Fantasy FFL across the socials. And be sure to check out the website, clubfantasyffl.com. Stay tuned for Austin's DFS cash game article, the A-list, which will drop on Saturday. And of course, our DFS preview show, DFS Academy with Austin and Ryan. We will see you guys next week, and Austin will see you guys probably in about a day. So take it easy and stay tuned for, next show and all that other good stuff. See ya.